Hey guys, I'm going to do a video today on basically everything that you'd need to start welding classes. So I want to do a video that's for anyone that is going to be taking welding classes or even just getting started in welding, even at home. Just the basic items that you'll need as far as personal protective equipment, the proper clothing, some basic safety ideas and that sort of thing. So in this video, I'm not only going to be talking about if you came and took classes at American River College where I teach, but also anywhere else. One of the main differences that you'll find with our program at American River College where I teach is that we provide everything for the students on a loaning basis from our tool room. So basically everything that you'll see here today, most everything that you'll see here today is available to the students for free from our tool room, but not every program's like that. So a lot of students are going out and they're having to purchase a few items to get started in classes. So I'm going to cover that as well today in this video. So the first thing that I'll start off with is the proper clothing. So if you're coming to American River College to do our welding program, like I said, we provide just about everything in terms of personal protective equipment, hand tools, all that kind of stuff. But you do need to show up in the proper clothing to get started welding. So the thing about welding is that we're dealing with heat, with fire, sparks, all that kind of stuff. So we can't have any flammable materials. So basically just jeans or canvas type pants, something that's durable, that's non-flammable is good. No frayed edges, nothing like that. So any cut off jeans, anything like that, is not going to be good. Those little frayed edges, even if they're just starting to wear on the bottoms, they tend to catch fire very, very easily. Much more easily than you'd think. Also, if you have shirts that have any types of tears on them or loose edges hanging down, things like that, that's not good. So you want to avoid that. And just cotton shirts, wool shirts. You can, as long as you're wearing a welding jacket over it or sleeves over it, short sleeve is fine. Especially if it's in the middle of summer and it's a little hotter, you're trying to reduce the amount of layers, that's okay. But long sleeve cotton shirts are good all around. They just provide an extra layer of protection, but make sure that they are cotton, that they're not synthetic. Even under a welding jacket, you'd be surprised how sparks will find their way in there. If there's synthetic materials in there, sometimes they can get to smoldering inside your jacket, and that's no fun. Trust me on that. Just kind of common sense with your clothing. No tennis shoes. You will need to wear leather boots or what we call safety shoes, some leather safety shoes at the very least. But a good high top, not extremely high, but just the higher top so that it's up under the ends of your pants. Leather work boot is perfect. You don't have to go all out when you're first getting started. Just get something basic is good, but you want good foot protection, especially once you start welding out of position, especially when you're starting off, you can lose that weld pool and it'll drop down or lose the slag and it'll drop down, and sometimes it'll go right on top of your foot. If you're wearing leather work boots, it's not a big deal. But if you're wearing some nice synthetic Nikes or something like that, your foot will catch on fire. So that's no fun either. So just bite the bullet. If you're used to wearing runners every day, you're a welder now. You're going to be in work boots all the time. That's just a fact of life as a welder. So get used to that. So that's your basic proper clothing, no synthetic materials, proper footwear, no frayed edges, nothing like that. And, as a student getting into this industry, you just kind of want to start looking at it as, okay, I want to, wherever I go, whether that's school, potential job interview, anywhere you go, you never know who you're going to bump into. So you want the proper clothing for work. And you just you want to start, wearing that sort of thing when you just go into a shop to do a tour, when, you go to school, where you go to, even you go to the, weld supply, you never know who you're going to bump into, and you want to look like you're ready to work if you're trying to get into this industry. So just keep that in mind. So from there, I'm going to talk about basic PPE. So PPE is personal protective equipment. So that's all the things that you'll use to protect yourself, your body, your eyes, your ears, your hands, your body itself when you're welding. That's all the personal protective equipment to protect yourself while you're working and while you're welding. And then, of course, this is very important that you use these things effectively. And then what types of things that you are going to purchase are important too, because there's a lot of different options out there for different types of welding. So the first thing I'm going to talk about, because it's one of the most important things in terms of avoiding injury, is safety glasses. So these are the ones that I wear. These are the Maverick, and I'll put links to a lot of this stuff in the description. Safety glasses are not, you don't need to get the same pair that I wear just because. I do like these. They're comfortable on my head. I like that they have side shields. But above all else, I wear these things all day, every day, some days. So I want comfort. And over the years, I found they're comfortable, they last a long time, they're durable, and they have side shields. I just like them. So I've settled on using these all the time now. But any of the ANSI approved safety glasses, which I've never come across any safety glasses that are out there that aren't ANSI approved, at least here in California. Things might be different somewhere else, but all of them are going to be ANSI approved. You can make sure, just in case, just make sure it says that on there, that they're ANSI ZA7 approved for impact. But the thing that I really want to say about this is get used to wearing these all the time. When you walk in the shop, into any shop, have your own safety glasses, have them on. Doesn't matter if you just run into the shop for a second. Anytime that you enter a shop, you should have safety glasses on, because you never know. You walk around a corner, someone's grinding, get something in your eye. Eye injuries are the most common thing that happens in shops nationwide. The most common injury is eye injuries. And it's something that, over the years, I've had 3 or 4 different instances where I ended up with something in my eye. And that was, with my hood on, with safety glasses or a face shield and safety glasses. So, there's stuff bouncing around all the time when we're grinding or welding, and just somehow it always ends up making it into your eye. So protect yourself at all times. And that's another thing about looking professional, looking ready to work. If you walk in with your safety glasses on to a shop, you're looking for a job or something, they're going to know. Just that one thing is going to show, at least safety protocol, if nothing else. So that'll help you out. So safety glasses. Then the next thing that's really important, kind of the basics, is hearing protection. This is something that I really talk about a lot, because I was not good about using hearing protection when I first got in the industry. And now I'm really seeing the effects of that as I get older. If there's any background noise, it's really hard for me to hear people. And, it's something that once you damage your ears, it's not coming back. It's not going to heal. So over time, just the nature of this industry, there's a lot of noise pollution. There's a lot of grinding, hammering, fabrication activity going on all around you all the time. It takes its toll on your ears. And it's one of those things that you think, oh, I'm going to put, if I'm going to do something that's loud, I'm going to put hearing protection in. And you end up, someone next to you is hammering something and you aren't prepared for it or something. And so that's how you get damage over time. So really, if you're going into work, put your hearing protection in, put your safety glasses on, and just, keep them on, as long as you're working. If you're welding and doing fabrication and stuff, you should just have them in just to protect yourself. because 40, 50 years from now, you want to be able to hear, you know, for the rest of your life, even after you're retired and stuff like that. That's when it's really going to matter to you. So keep that in mind. There's two different types of hearing protection. There might be more, but earplugs are good, just in and out, easy thing to put in, but they don't provide the utmost protection. But these can type earmuff type hearing protection is if you're doing a lot of grinding, or there's a lot of people grinding around you, or something's real loud, it gives you extra protection on the outside of your ear. This is really helpful. I never used to use these either because they're big and bulky, but now if I'm doing any type, if I'm cutting material, or, you know, if I'm grinding a lot, I use these, and it's so nice because it just filters out just about everything and protects your ears. Okay, so that's hearing protection. The next thing I'll talk about is respirators for welding. So there's a bunch of different options that you have in terms of respirators. This one is the Miller brand. It's a low profile welding respirator, and this works great. I love this one. You know, there are a couple different sizes, so depending on how big your head and your face is, so you want to match that up so that it fits right. You know, if it doesn't really fit well, it's not really going to do a good job because you're going to have a lot of air that's coming in the sides. So try to get that fit to your face. You can get these professionally fit to your face, where they actually will test and make sure that they're fit, and they do that a lot in industry. But you know, the main thing is just that I think it's important as a student for you to get used to using a respirator. Again, this is something that I never did. I had one. I, you know, would get tired of dealing with it in a hot shop, so I would just toss it aside. And I'm dealing with the issues of that. You know, once I got in the industry, I wasn't very good about using a respirator either, and it does damage to your respiratory system over time. And I'm also dealing with the effects of that. So don't be like me and just go, oh, well, you know, I'll worry about that tomorrow. You're going to do that every day, and then all of a sudden, 20 years later, you're going to be dealing with some health issues. Welding fumes are not good for you. Doesn't matter what process you're using. You know, this is all kinds of things that aren't naturally in our body that we're breathing in. But if you protect yourself, it is relatively, you know, if you protect yourself well enough and you use ventilation and a respirator, you can protect yourself well enough to where you can have a long, healthy life being a welder and not deal with any adverse effects for the most part. So this is the one that I use. I like it. There's many different brands out there. These filters are designed for the most part for particulate from welding fumes. There are some other things I'll talk about in other videos, like when you're welding stainless steel and stuff like that, hexavalent chromium, which you need to take extra precaution for. But for the most part, all around, this is a good all-around respirator to use, and it will protect you over time. Just get used to using this as well, and you'll be happy that you did in the long run. So that's ventilation. So I'm sorry, respirator. Ventilation is always a you know, something that you want to think about. I'll talk about that a little bit later when we're talking about general safety. Just kind of assessing your area. You always want to make sure that there's enough ventilation in the area that you're welding, so that, you know, fumes are being carried away from you in some form, that you have enough room in the area to where it dissipates and you're not in a confined space where all that is staying with you and depleting oxygen. So, you know, if you have good ventilation plus the respirator, then you're breathing mostly clean air and you'll be good to go. So then the next thing I'll talk about is protecting your head. This may not be necessary if you're just welding in the flat position or horizontal position, but a welding cap is pretty much essential for me. Welding out of position, doing fabrication activities in weird positions underneath things or whatever. You know, as welding sparks come down and stuff like that, you want to protect your head. You don't want to be welding and smell that telltale sign of your hair kind of singeing off, because that does happen. So protect your hairs. Welding caps, you can get any type of welding cap, basically anything that fits your head that'll go over your ears and your hair. There's all different types. There's the cap style with the little bill that goes towards the back, protects your neck. There's the do-rag type, like this, which actually ties in the back, which if you have long hair or you have dreads or something like that, you know, these are kind of good. You can get them oversized and they'll fit over all that hair. So a lot of people use this type that have hair like that. You can also, if you can't, you know, a lot of this stuff, like welding caps, for instance, you can kind of, you can fabricate yourself. You can just take an old cotton t-shirt and, you know, cut a big square with some little pieces that come off that are longer, and you can wrap that around your head and tie it in the back. It's a do-it-yourself do-rag. I did that a couple of times when I was young and broke and burned up my welding cap or something, so, or it was just hot. Another type is the like all over hood. This is an FR rated hood. This is good for like if you're doing a lot of like out of position fabrication. But what I found when I was using it after a while in a fabrication shop was that it was just kind of nice all around, because it just totally encased my head. It kept me clean. There's really no way for the you know, sparks, especially if you're doing like short circuit MIG welding out of position. You know, the sparks will find its way in your collar and any little crevice. This really protects you all around. And it is a little hotter, but sometimes it gets kind of saturated with sweat and it actually keeps you cooler. I know that sounds kind of gross, but it's true. So that's your that's just like a fabrication hood. Those are nice too. In terms of jackets, there's a few different types. I say jackets, but there's actually a bunch of different types of things that will protect your body and your arms when you're welding, and your neck. So there's so there are just sleeves that you can buy, which just basically, I don't have any here today, but they're basically just a non-flammable material that are sleeves that just go on under like a short sleeve shirt. And you can use those for like TIG welding and stuff like that, even light MIG welding. They're good, and they're a good way to keep as cool as possible because you don't have on a lot of extra layers. But once you start to get into stick welding or flux core out of position or something, you know, they just aren't going to cut it. Just too lightweight, and if you just have like a t-shirt on and those sleeves, you really don't want to get some flux core sparks on you or something. You'll definitely feel it, and you could get a really bad burn. So don't do that with any of the more heavy duty processes like flux core or stick. Light MIG welding, TIG welding, those sleeves are okay. I like to use, for most of the light welding that I do, like TIG welding and MIG welding, even out of position, I'll use just a cloth welding jacket like this. I like it because I can keep relatively cool, and it's easy to move around in. You know, I like this, but sometimes I have a few different ones. Like I have one that's cloth like this on the main body, but has leather sleeves. So sometimes the sleeves just itself are leather. Sometimes I'll switch to that if I'm doing like vertical up or overhead or something, and you know, in the little crooks of your arm, you're getting spatter and stuff that kind of burns. I'll switch to that sometimes. But for most of the things, especially in welding school, one of these will be adequate. But if you're going to do some like NR232 flux core or out of position stick welding, especially doing like a certification plate where you're doing multiple passes over and over and over again, leathers are going to be better. So I'll show you leathers. It's basically the same thing. but heavy duty leather. This is a nice jacket. That last one was a Miller brand. This one is a Black Stallion. This is pretty good quality leathers. It's just a leather jacket. These are heavy and they do get hot during the summer, but these are going to protect you if if that weld pool drops out on you or some slag or whatever, or you put your arm up against some hot metal or something like that. This is going to protect you for the most part. You might still feel it, but it's not going to burn you instantly. So these are good. So one thing I wanted to say about ARC versus maybe some other places is that we provide everything for you, but we only have leathers. We provide leathers for everybody. So these are exchanged out of our tool room. So, if you're going to buy your own, it's kind of nice because you can buy like a lighter weight MIG welding jacket or something like that. And then you can, if you come across a situation where you need leathers, you can just use one of ours. And you can save, this for when you get out of school and you need to purchase your own stuff to work or something like that. So between my cloth welding jacket and my leathers, I can do just about anything. The only other thing that I wanted to mention is a cape and a bib setup, which can be a lot cooler. So a cape and a bib setup is basically the same thing as the leather welding jacket, except it doesn't have a backside, which can be helpful because the whole front of you is protected, but the back is open, so it keeps you cooler. And I used these for years when I was doing MIG welding fabrication. And, I was tired of destroying my clothes. Any little areas that were exposed would just get eaten up. Even though it was light MIG welding, I was doing it in all positions, doing fabrication. And so I had a setup where I had a cape and a bib, and then I also had some leather protectors for my pants too, but the entire backside was open, so I was able to keep as cool as possible. So this cape goes across your shoulders and it has sleeves, full leather sleeves. The back is open, and then this bib snaps on. Once you put that on, the bib snaps on to the front, and then you're protected. So this is great because it also comes down a little bit more. So if you're carrying around material or you're doing stuff, fabricating, it protects your clothes and keeps you from getting, grease and stuff on your clothes. I really like this setup too. So that might be something to think about as well when you're getting started. All right. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is hand protection, gloves. This is really important too. That you protect your hands when you're welding, that you have the proper gloves for welding different processes. It's something that if you have the right glove for a particular process, not only is it going to keep you safe, but it's going to make your life a lot easier, and it's going to make you a better welder if you have the right glove for each process. Not that you have to get multiple different types of gloves, but basically 2 different types of gloves. If you're going to be learning all the different processes, you'll be able to get by and you'll be able to do it well and be comfortable and be able to produce good quality work. So the first thing I'll talk about, if you're only going to buy one type of glove, you can buy a gauntlet style MIG or stick glove. So that would be like these here. It's just a more heavy duty, little bit thicker, leather, and it comes up your wrist a little bit. That's the gauntlet style that it's called. So this is a good all-around MIG welding. For the most part, flux core. When you get into real heavy duty wires like NR232, you might need a back cap just to protect your hand and the gloves so that you aren't going through gloves a lot. A back cap looks like this, and you can see this one has saved a few gloves in its life. This one's about done because it's got holes all the way through, but you get the idea. This goes on usually on your left hand, with your glove on, goes on your left hand. So as you're welding, it protects your hand from the intense heat. Some of these processes are very, very hot, like self-shielded flux core. It's very, very hot. The material gets very, very hot. So this will save your hand from getting blisters, and it will reduce the amount of times that you buy gloves. But anyway, these are the gauntlet style gloves. So if you're only gonna buy one, this is the type to get, because you can use this with MIG, stick, flux core, and you can get away with TIG welding. But you can imagine TIG welding is a little bit more meticulous process. It's going to be a little bit more difficult with these thicker gloves. These ones aren't too bad, but some gloves are they're like baseball mitts. These ones are even a little bit more bulky than those. So you can imagine this would be tough. Like I wouldn't even want to do that, and I'm pretty proficient at TIG welding. So the gauntlet style gloves, good for MIG, stick, and flux core. And then if you're going to be TIG welding, which tends to be, if you're just starting classes, they're not going to throw you into TIG welding right away, unless they want to punish you or something. TIG welding's great. Don't get me wrong, I love it. It's my favorite process, but it is a little bit more difficult to learn for a beginner. So you're going to need to use your fine motor skills a little bit more with TIG welding. So you want a thinner glove, something that you can move your fingers around and be able to pick up a tungsten little electrode with and stuff like that, and be able to handle small components. Now these are your typical kid skin gloves. So these are very, very thin leather. And these are good for TIG welding, but I wouldn't recommend them for an inexperienced TIG welder. And the reason is because when you first start TIG welding, you're gonna, there's all kinds of things that can happen, but what I see a lot is that students will turn the TIG torch towards their fingers on their filler rod hand and immediately burn up their fingers on the other hand. And what happens with this really thin kid skin is that as soon as you apply that intense heat of the arc to it, it just shrivels up and you can hardly even get your finger in there anymore. And now your expensive, nice TIG welding gloves are basically ruined. You can use them for a while longer, but I hate the way that feels on my fingers, and it just makes it really hard to use them. So the solution to that is a little thicker glove. This one's kind of like a medium duty. It's almost like a cross between a MIG welding glove and a TIG welding glove. These are called TIGSTERs, these particular ones, but since these came out, I think just about all the different manufacturers are making a version of this. So these are the ones that I use all the time. As you can tell, they're pretty dirty and messed up, but I use these all the time for TIG welding and even light MIG welding, because I just love that, I can pick up stuff that I have good manual dexterity with them. I can prep material with them, although they don't last as long as if you prep material with your welding gloves. But, I just like to be able to do everything and not have to be worrying about changing gloves or anything like that. So I really like these, and they're just a little bit thicker, and so they last longer. If you accidentally turn that arc towards your finger for a split second, it's going to hold up better and it's not going to shrivel up immediately. So, check it out for yourself, see which one you like better, but that's just my own personal preference. So that's how I feel about TIG welding gloves. In addition to those two types of gloves, some other things that you may or may not want to pick up. They're not necessary when you first start by any means, but a back cap is a good thing to have in your arsenal, in your tool bag or whatever, because you never know. You get to NR 232, you'll definitely want that. And then this is a TIG finger. Sorry, I forgot for a second. TIG finger. There's all different kinds of brands. These ones are from Weldmonger, and I like these the best. They're very simple. You can just put, a finger or 2 fingers in there, and it helps you rest on material, especially for welding out of position, like if you're doing freehand pipe or something like that. It's a great thing to have. Keeps your fingers from burning up on hot material, especially because when we're in school, we're tending to be welding on little tiny pieces of material rather than actual like weldments, which takes the heat of the arc better. So especially in school, it's nice to be able to rest your finger right on the piece with TIG welding. So TIG finger is good for that. The ones that strap to your hand, those work too, and other different brands that I've seen, they're all the same concept. All right, so like I was saying, we had to take a little break there, but there's all different types of these, and this is just the one that I prefer. So you may find one that you like better, but this is the one that I like. So from there, the only other thing I wanted to talk about, not the only other thing, the next thing that I'll talk about is hoods, which is, obviously very important. And especially when you're first starting out, if you're going to buy your own hood, it depends on, who you are, how much money you have, how much you can spend to get started. When I got started, I was broke. So I bought the most inexpensive hood relatively that I could find. I didn't get an auto darkening hood. I just got a fixed shade hood. I actually have it still right here. I think this is a Huntsman brand, I'm pretty sure. The only thing that was not like rock bottom is that it's a little bit larger viewing area, and but it's fixed shade 10. And this was a good hood. It did the job, but I will tell you, it was more difficult for me, especially I really found out when I started to get into try to get certified and stuff like that. And especially starting off stick welding, it was trying to strike the arc on the joint when I first gotten started. It made it a lot more difficult, especially the shop that I was working in. The school had really dark welding booths, so it was basically I was welding blind. Now, you could argue that made me a better welder, but I don't know. I don't know. So if you start off with something like this, it will totally get you started. But an auto darkening hood, which means that it will be lighter until you strike the arc, and then it will darken to the full shade 10 or whatever you have it set at, is going to be easier for most people. But it is going to be more expensive. So if you can only afford this, or if somebody gives you one of these, go for it. It's going to get you started. It's going to protect you. It's going to do the job. It's just not as advanced as maybe an auto darkening hood. And everybody will argue about, whether fixed shade's better and auto darkening is better. But I think for a beginner, I would tend to believe that an auto darkening hood is easier for them to get started. So that's what I started with. Now I have much better hoods, which is awesome. When I was a welder as my full-time job, I ended up using a Speedglas hood. I really liked it. And the reason why I originally chose the Speedglas was I just put a bunch of different hoods on and cranked it down to see what felt comfortable on my head and what felt light on my head, because that was one thing that was tough for me to get used to, is having that weight on your head for 8 hours or more a day. And the Speedglas at that time, compared to the other hoods I was looking at, was the lightest. And so I don't know that that's the case anymore. It may not be, but at the time, that's why I ended up picking the Speedglas. And it also had the largest viewing area, which is not the case anymore either. I think everybody kind of is relative. They have a smaller viewing area that's available, and then a larger one and an even larger one, typically. So, but this is the 9100X that I ended up using, and I really liked it. I used this for a long time. It is kind of a wider hood, so sometimes it'd be difficult to get your head in somewhere and be welding. but I really like this hood, and has a fairly good quality filter. But this particular one is pretty expensive, but it's a great hood. So it does come down to personal preference at the end of the day with the different brands. I think all the major brands that are out there, top of the line hood's going to be great. It's going to have a great filter. They all have kind of, different quirks to them that you can, figure out through online reviews and stuff like that. For instance, this hood has 3 sensors, and the bottom one is right in the bottom here. And I have found that in fabrication, especially if you got your hands, you're trying to reach something and weld it, and there's, square tubing in front of you or something like that. When you cover that up, at least it used to be. This one's not so difficult with this, but the hood I used to have before this one, that was the Speedglas, if you covered up that bottom one, sometimes it would come on and it would flash you. So that was one drawback, but other than that, I really like the hood and it works really well. And I was doing a lot of TIG welding back then, and it was really good filter for that. So that's the Speedglas. Any of the major brands, Lincoln, Miller, Speedglas, they're all kind of similar in that, they have a $400 hood that's top of the line that's going to be great. It's going to have a really good quality filter, and then they're going to have one that's around $130, $140. That's more entry level, but that's still a really good hood comparatively. You can get one on Amazon. They got a million brands out there that are not like real name brand, but some of them work fairly well. But that's a $60 hood or a $50 hood compared to a $120 hood. That $120 hood, it's going to perform better, and it's probably going to last longer too. But it depends on where you're at. How much money you have to spend. You can get something cheap just to get you started. There's nothing wrong with that. This is just what I use now because I can now, which is nice, because I used that big shade 10 for years and years to get started. So this is a Miller. This is a digital performance. So this is not the very top of the line, but this is getting up there. This is not a real cheap hood, but I just got this one recently, and I really like this one. I'm struggling to decide which one I want to be my TIG welding hood and which one I want my MIG welding hood to be, because you can see the MIG welding out of position takes its toll on it a little bit more, not a little bit, a lot more than nice clean TIG welding. So this might end up being my TIG welding hood. I really like the filter on this. It's a smaller viewing area on this one, so the next step up would have a larger viewing area and maybe even an upgraded filter, I'm not sure. But this is the Miller brand. Like I said, you look at any of them, the Lincoln hoods we use at the school. We use both Miller and Lincoln at the school at ARC. And that hood is more of an entry-level auto darkening. Those hoods are probably about $130, $140, and they're great. They're a great entry-level hood. They work very, very well, and that's the Lincoln brand and the Miller brand around that price range is, if you can afford that, is going to be awesome. You're going to be really happy with those, and it's going to make it the easiest possible situation for you to get started welding and be able to see where you're at before you start the arc and that sort of thing. All right, so that's it on the hoods. The only other thing that you may need is a face shield. If you're going to be doing any cutting with a grinder or heavy duty grinding, you want to wear a face shield. Really any grinding, you want to use a face shield just in case that abrasive material comes apart and flies everywhere. Face shield's going to protect your face. Safety glasses are only going to protect your eyes, but those stones do come apart sometimes, and that's just a clear plastic shield that affixes to your head the same way a hood does. And those are really important to have. If you're taking classes, they'll typically have them there. It's not something you need to buy. But if they don't have it and you're doing any type of fabrication or grinding or something like that, it's something that you'll want to pick up. And that's just a clear visor that goes over your face, protect your face from grinding, and the actual abrasive wheels coming apart. Only other thing that you may want to pick up is some paint markers or something like that if you need to mark your projects or any type of steel. This is like a wax solid marker. This is great because it'll mark on anything, heavy mill scale, anything like that. Rusty material, you know, it'll mark over anything basically. Paint marker is it can be a little bit more troublesome, but it'll mark on anything too. And then you can also use soapstone to mark on at least mild steel. It'll mark on very well, and that's cheap and easy to come by. It's just like a chalk basically that you can mark material with, but it won't really mark like stainless steel or aluminum all that well. So that's why I like to have some of these around to mark material with, especially if you're having to put your name and, you know, stuff on projects and turn them in. It's a good thing to have if they don't provide it. So as far as hand tools, so there's really only two things that I think that you absolutely need if you're going to be taking some welding courses, or you're just getting started with welding. And it depends on what processes you're doing. But the first thing is like a MIG welding plier. And you can get away without these two as long as you have something to cut the wire with. You know, if you're messing with stuff, you pull the trigger, you're checking your gas or whatever, you get some excess wire that comes out on your MIG welding gun. You just need something to be able to clip that off. The nice thing about a MIG welding plier, which is called a Welper, is that it also has, not only does it have a cutter for cutting your wire, but it has a bunch of other you know, modifications on there to be able to take your nozzle off if it's hot, you know, instead of having to touch it and, you know, burn your fingers and stuff. You can unscrew it with this little notch that's in there. This is actually for the gas nozzle back here. This is for your contact tip, the smaller one, to be able to remove that stuff or tighten it up. And then there's a couple different brands out there that are just slightly different. I like this one. They used to call this they might still call it the Matador, but it used to be made by a different brand. And then I think they sold out to Lincoln, because now Lincoln sells this type. But the difference with this is that on the outside of this this part of the plier is that it has these little striations, which are good to be able to clean out the inside of your gas nozzle. And I've been using these for years now, and I just love that. These ones, they'll do the job, but it's just flat. And you know, I'll also use that to kind of like file down the end of my my contact tip. I just like that feature a lot. You know, so I tend to get these now. I think Lincoln makes these now, and that's the Matador type, but something like this will be fine too. Okay. The other thing that's really important is vice grip. And this is really important because for handling material. Various reasons, but handling material, and also it's a good thing to be able to position yourself, meaning if you're welding out of position, especially like overhead or vertical or something, you know, if you're welding on a welding fixture, you can attach this and lock it down at various positions around, and then you can use that to rest your hand on, or, you know, whatever. It just helps you to have one more tool at your disposal. The other thing is for handling material. So, and I forgot to mention this earlier, but you can get other types of gloves that are just for handling material. These ones are like a rubberized, you know, with cloth on the top. So you wouldn't want to handle hot material with this, but let's just say you're stacking material, or you're bringing it over the shear or something like that, you know, and you just want to protect your hands from rough edges. These are great because they're cheap, well, relatively cheap, But, you know, and if you wear them out, you just get a new pair and you move on. I really like these, and they're easy to be able to handle stuff. But anyway, if you're handling material, like let's say you're welding this might be 3/4 1 inch plate. You have to have some pliers that will lock onto your piece. So you don't, when you're welding this, if you're taking it over to the quench tank to cool it down or something, or you know, you're just taking it over to the scrap bin or whatever you're doing, and it's hot material, you do not want to do the hot potato and be trying to run across the shop with this hot piece of metal and all that kind of stuff. So you want to be able to lock down onto the piece and be able to handle it properly. It's kind of a pet peeve of mine because I see a lot of students using their MIG welding pliers to handle big, thick material like this, and you know, bring it over and show it to me and stuff. And it's just not a safe way to do things. Almost 100% of the time, you're going to drop it on your feet or somebody else's feet. So you know, you lock down your vice grips. You can turn this any which way. It's not going to fall out. You know, you can dip that in your quench bin and not lose it and have to dig around in the bottom of the quench bin for your piece. You don't want to do that. So that's why vice grips are important. Okay, so have a pair of those. And what happens when you use MIG welding pliers for this, you've got to put a lot of force on it and hold it, and as soon as you turn that over, that happens. Okay, I see that all the time in the weld shop. See that all the time in the weld shop, and you know, it's just not a professional, safe way to do things. Your MIG welding pliers are for MIG welding. They're for cleaning out your nozzle, for clipping off your wire. They're not for handling material. Maybe some little tiny TIG plates or something you can turn over, but so use your vice grips to handle material. Another thing you can do is get these type of clamps, which just give you a little bit more. They're good for fabricating, you know, clamping things together so you can tack them, that sort of thing. But they can also be good for positioning in your weld booth, resting your hands on stuff. Just, you know, between my vice grips and one of these or two of these, it's like I can get really sophisticated with, you know, having different things at different levels to rest my arms on for out of position stuff. So one each of these is a good thing to have if you can afford it. Again, ARC, pretty nice because we have this kind of stuff available in the tool room for you to use. But even if you come to ARC and you know, are using all of our stuff to get started, that's totally fine. But as you start to get through the program, get closer to getting out there and trying to get a job, you're going to want to start to try to pick this stuff up for yourself and start building that tool bag so that you can show up and, you know, have some of your own stuff to use. Which is not easy, I know, because you know, when I first started out, it was like I had this hodgepodge of tools that I had gotten from really other people. It just, you know, gave me their extra stuff to get started because I was pretty broke. But you know, it got me started, and I was able to pick up things once I got started working and started making good money. But I know it can be difficult to pick up your own tools when you're first starting out. But if you just buy one little thing at a time, over time, you tend to be able to get that stuff together, and it's not such a big you know, loss financially to you, you know, buying everything at once. Just kind of pick up things one at a time over the months. All right. So I think that's about it for the items here. So next I'll talk about just general safety. I'm not going to get into it a lot. And again, but my disclaimer is, you know, this is not a full safety training. It's just kind of some tips that I'm giving you that I've seen. So by no means does this mean that once you watch this video that, you know, you're certified safe. No, it doesn't work that way. You know, the thing that I'd like to say about safety is that you really need to make that, to make safety in the forefront of your mind. What we tend to do in industry is we get complacent with safety because we do these things every day. They are inherently dangerous activities. We're dealing with electricity, we're dealing with, with sparks and heat and flames and heavy material and cranes and all kinds of stuff all around us all the time. So, the potential for the danger is there. We just need to make sure that we're thinking about things and that we're moving slow enough to where we're really keeping safety in the forefront of our minds. And for the most part, we can be very, very safe throughout our entire careers as long as we kind of remain vigilant about that and protect ourselves. So keep that in your mind especially you start dealing with deadlines in industry and even in school, you got an assignment that's due or something like that, and you tend to want to rush and cut corners. That's when people get hurt, and that's when you don't really do very good work either. Trust me, I've tested this theory time and time again. Every time that you cut corners or try to hurry, it ends up costing you time, because usually you have to redo whatever it is you're working on because you mess it up because you're trying to push that. Take your time. It's not the end of the world. If various reasons you miss the deadline or whatever, you turn in a project late or whatever, take your time, do it safe. In 10, 20 years, you're not even going to remember. Just take your time and be safe with it. So general safety, when you get into an area and you're going to be working in that area, you need to take a general assessment of the area. Check out the ventilation, check out the size of the area. Like I said before, the amount of room, how high the ceiling is, how big that room is, makes a big difference in how much those fumes build up. But hopefully you're going to be welding in an area that has a lot of air movement through it, whether that's like a fume extraction system or a fan system in the building that moves the air a lot. You want to make sure that there's good ventilation. So if I was going to be welding in this area here, I'm going to open up the doors. I'm going to have a fan that blows not directly on the weld area, because that's going to blow away your shielding gas or something like that, but at least gets a sort of air movement to where the fumes are being pulled away from me. When I'm welding in the booths at the lab, we have a movable ventilation fume extractor system. So I want to position that as close as I can to the weld plume, meaning that the smoke that's coming up from the weld, I want to position that right above it so that as I'm welding, it's pulling the fumes away from me. Okay, so you want to take a look at your area before you start welding. Check out the ventilation. That's your first safety check. Also check out, just look at your welding equipment. So take a look at your welding leads. This is a TIG welding lead, but make sure that all the connections are good, that you don't see any exposed copper, anything like that. On like a power plug like this, if there's a big cut and you can see copper exposed, that's not a good thing. Especially if there's a big puddle on the ground, you got that laying in there and you're standing in it, that's definitely not a good thing. So you just want to take a look at your equipment and check for any loose connections, any exposed copper, which could be the potential for electric shock. Okay, so check that out. Of course, any standing water you do not want to weld in, anything like that, if at all possible. So you want to avoid that. Any flammable materials around, anything combustible. Wood shavings, paper, anything that can catch fire, you want that well away from your welding area, okay? Just for instance, at the school, a backpack in the corner of your welding booth will catch on fire. We've tested this theory. It definitely will catch on fire, okay? And that's no fun for anybody. Not only is it, all your stuff getting burned up, but it's also a safety issue. I think someone could get hurt, right? So just don't underestimate how far welding sparks can bounce and stuff like that. Put it well away from the area. Wood shavings, anything like that, and any type of solvents need to be very, very far away from the welding area. So, if you're cleaning material with solvents such as alcohol or acetone or something like that, those need to be in a different room or a solvent cabinet, which is, the proper way to store that stuff, and consult OSHA on all this stuff. I'm not even going to say what I think it is in this video because I don't want to give you that type of advice, but consult OSHA on how to properly store that and how far away it needs to be from the welding area. But take a look at your area before you start welding. Make sure you know where the nearest fire extinguisher is, or if you have a fire blanket for smothering flames, because things do catch on fire sometimes. Your clothing catches on fire sometimes. It's happened to me. So just know where that stuff is so that if something happens, you can take care of the situation and you aren't having to think in that moment of, oh, I should have figured out where the fire extinguisher is and if it works properly. Okay, so figure out that stuff before you get started in these activities. Other than that, I can't really think of anything else right now, so just be safe. Always keep that in the forefront of your mind. Work slow, work safe, and you'll be all right. So hopefully this video has been helpful for you. And again, I'm going to put some links in the description for some things that may be helpful for you to get, and some of the things that I mentioned in this video, and hope you enjoyed it. Thanks.